The UES Guardian shook as another blast hit its damaged hull. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair and watched the stars spin outside the broken viewports. His ship was dying, and so was humanity. The Zephyrian Empire had won this war before it truly began. Lisa Martinez worked frantically in the engine room. Sparks flew from broken panels as she tried to keep the fusion drives running. The ship needed to reach Earth, but the engines were failing. She could hear the metal groaning, under stress. 3 months ago, she had been the best engineer in the fleet. Now she was just trying to keep her friends alive long enough to see home one last time. Ryan Bennett sat at his communications station sending out distress calls. Most went unanswered. The few responses he got were from other broken ships limping through space. The human fleet was scattered and defeated. He had counted over 200 ships at the start of the war. Now maybe 20 were still flying. The Zephyrians had better weapons and stronger shields. Human technology looked like toys compared to their crystal armor and plasma cannons. On the main screen, Jake could see the refugee ships following behind them. Families who had lost everything when the aliens destroyed their colonies. Children who would never see their home worlds again. Old people who remembered when humans thought they were alone in the universe. That was before first contact with the Zephyrian Empire 5 years ago. The aliens had seemed friendly at first, but their real plan became clear quickly. They wanted human worlds, and they would take them by force. Back on Earth, Admiral Karen Davis stood in the command center watching the enemy fleet approach. Satellite images showed hundreds of Zephyrian ships moving toward the inner system. Their crystal hulls reflected sunlight like deadly mirrors. Each ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. The defense platforms around Earth fired, constantly, but their weapons barely scratched the alien shields. The cities below were in chaos. People filled the roads trying to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The Zephyrians controlled the space around Earth. No transport ships could leave the planet. Karen had ordered the evacuation of major population centers, but she knew it was hopeless. Even if they moved everyone to the underground shelters, the aliens could crack the planet open if they wanted to. In the Colorado Research Facility, Dr. Alex Turner worked through another sleepless night. His quantum physics lab was buried deep underground, where the aliens could not see it. For weeks, he had been studying dark matter readings that made no sense. The numbers showed impossible energy signatures coming from areas where humans had fought desperate battles against the invaders. His assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, helped him run test after test, but they could not explain what they were seeing. The readings were strongest around human settlements under attack. It was as if space itself was changing when people faced death. Alex had theories, but they sounded crazy even to him. Could human minds somehow affect the basic forces of physics? The idea went against everything science knew about the universe. Yet the data did not lie. Something was happening that no textbook could explain. Maria brought him more reports from the battle zones. Energy spikes appeared whenever human soldiers made last stands against overwhelming odds. The patterns were always the same. When people had nothing left to lose, the readings went off the charts. Alex wondered if desperation could somehow unlock hidden parts of the human mind. Outside the research facility, the world was ending. News reports showed Zephyrian ground forces landing in major cities. Their crystal armor made them nearly invincible. Human weapons bounced off them like raindrops. The aliens moved through human defenses like they were not even there. Entire armies fell back in terror as the invaders advanced. Jake finally reached Earth orbit with his damaged ship. The sight below made his heart sink. Smoke rose from burning cities across every continent. Zephyrian landing craft descended like metal rain. The proud blue planet that had given birth to humanity was being conquered before his eyes. He opened a channel to all surviving human forces and heard Admiral Davis give the order that broke his spirit. All remaining ships were to land and prepare for ground defense. The space battle was over. Humanity had lost control of the stars. Now they would make their last stand on the world where their species began. Karen knew it was hopeless, but she would not surrender without a fight. The underground facilities might hold out for a while, but eventually the aliens would break through. In his lab, Alex detected the strongest energy readings yet. They came from directly above where the final space battle was ending. Something was building up there as human crews faced certain death. The quantum field measurements were unlike anything he had ever seen. Maria helped him focus the sensors on the battle zone. What they found would change everything they thought they knew about their own species. The Zephyrian fleet commander sent his final message to Earth. Humanity had 72 hours to surrender completely or face total destruction. Every human world would be burned clean. Every ship would be destroyed. The species that had dared to resist the Empire would be wiped from existence. The countdown to extinction had begun. Fear spread across Earth faster than wildfire. People huddled in their homes watching news reports of alien forces advancing through every major city. The 72-hour countdown played on every screen. Children cried while parents tried to hide their own terror. This was supposed to be humanity's greatest age, but instead, it had become their final chapter. Deep underground in Colorado, Dr. Alex Turner worked with desperate energy. His team gathered around computer screens showing impossible readings from the quantum sensors. Dr. Maria Santos pointed at the data streams flowing across her monitor. The energy signatures were growing stronger as panic increased above them. Programmer Kevin Chen tried to make sense of the patterns, while physicist Dr. Nicole Adams ran calculations that broke every known law of physics. Alex realized they were seeing something that had never been documented before. Human consciousness was somehow interacting with dark matter at the quantum level. The more desperate people became, the stronger the effect grew. It was as if the human mind could reach out and touch the basic building blocks of reality when pushed to the breaking point. Maria helped him focus the readings on specific battle zones where the effect was strongest. Captain Jake Morrison brought the damaged Guardian down to Earth's surface. His crew was exhausted and beaten, but they still had fight left in them. Lisa Martinez dragged herself from the engine room covered in burns and cuts. The ship would never fly again, but she had kept it together long enough to get them home. Ryan. Bennett gathered reports from other surviving crews. Most had similar stories of impossible things happening during their final battles. Jake called his officers together in the Guardian's broken briefing room. Lisa told them about moments during the retreat when the ship's damaged systems had somehow worked better than they should have. Ryan described communications that had reached farther than the equipment could explain. They all remembered times when human crews had seemed to do things that were not possible. Small things that they had dismissed as luck or adrenaline, but now seemed like something more. Alex contacted the military and requested test subjects for his research. He needed people who had been in desperate combat situations, people who might have experienced the quantum effects he was detecting. Admiral Karen Davis was skeptical, but she had no other options. She sent him Jake's crew along with other survivors, who reported strange experiences during battles. Lisa volunteered to be the first test subject. Alex and his team had built a crude neural interface that could monitor brain activity while measuring quantum field fluctuations. They did not know if it was safe, but time was running out. Lisa lay down on the examination table and let them attach the monitoring equipment. She thought about the moments during their retreat when she had somehow known exactly what the engines needed without looking at any instruments. The first test was small. Alex asked Lisa to try moving a metal cube on the table using only her thoughts. She concentrated and remembered the feeling of desperation when the ship was dying around her. Suddenly, the quantum sensors screamed with activity. The metal cube began to glow and slowly faded from view. Lisa gasped as she realized she could still feel it, but it was no longer completely solid. She had somehow made it phase between normal matter and something else. Kevin worked frantically to record every reading while Nicole tried to understand what they were seeing. The human brain was generating quantum fields that could alter the basic properties of matter. Lisa was still connected to the cube even though it was invisible. She could make it solid again or phase it through the table. Alex realized they had discovered something that would change human understanding of physics forever. Ryan Bennett was the next volunteer. He sat at a damaged computer terminal that had not worked for weeks. When he concentrated on his memories of desperate communications during the battle, something amazing happened. The broken circuits began to function again. More than that, he could feel the electronic systems as if they were part of his own body. Data flowed through his mind without needing a screen or keyboard. Meanwhile, resistance fighters on the surface were making their own discoveries. Commander Tony Rogers led a group of survivors through the ruins of Denver. His Lieutenant Amy Foster scouted ahead while Sergeant Pete Williams watched for alien patrols. They moved carefully through buildings damaged by Zephyrian bombardment. The enemy was everywhere, but somehow they always seemed to know which way was safe. Danny Clark was supposed to be their best scout, but even he was amazed by how well they avoided detection. Amy seemed to know when aliens were coming before they appeared. Pete could tell which walls were weak enough to break through without making noise. Tony felt like he could sense the emotions of his entire team even when they were far apart. They were doing things that training had never taught them. Dr. Turner's team worked around the clock studying the volunteers. Each person showed different abilities, but they all involved manipulating reality at the quantum level. Lisa could phase matter between dimensions. Ryan could interface directly with electronic systems. Other survivors showed different talents. Some could bend light to become invisible. Others could strengthen materials by changing their molecular structure. The most important discovery came when Alex tested multiple people together. Their individual abilities became much stronger when they worked as a team. Lisa could phase entire sections of the Guardian when Ryan helped coordinate the quantum fields. Two people working together could do things that neither could manage alone. The effect grew stronger with more participants. Maria realized what this meant for humanity's survival. If they could train people to use these abilities in combat, the war might not be over. Alex sent urgent reports to Admiral Davis, explaining their discoveries. They needed time to understand the full potential of human quantum manipulation. They needed volunteers who were willing to risk everything to save their species. The alien ultimatum still counted down toward zero, but now there was hope. Hidden in the depths of human consciousness was a power that could change the rules of war itself. The species that the Zephyrians thought was defeated was just beginning to discover what they were truly capable of when pushed beyond all limits. The Zephyrian invasion fleet entered Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. War Commander Thexkai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger. His crystal armor gleamed in the light from the burning human cities below. This would be his greatest victory. The conquest of 17 star systems had taught him that no species could resist the Empire's might for long. Humans were just another primitive race that needed to learn their place. Captain Jake Morrison climbed into the cockpit of a repaired fighter ship. His hands shook as he started the engines, but not from fear. The neural interface that Dr. Turner's team had installed made him feel connected to the ship in ways he had never experienced. Lisa Martinez worked in the hangar bay preparing other fighters. She could touch a damaged engine and somehow know exactly what needed fixing. Her quantum abilities let her strengthen metal and repair circuits just by thinking about them. The first wave of human ships launched to meet the alien fleet. Jake led a squadron of 12 fighters against hundreds of Zephyrian cruisers. It should have been suicide, but something had changed. His pilot, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, could navigate through space without instruments. He seemed to know where every enemy ship was, even when they were beyond sensor range. The quantum fields around his brain let him feel the fabric of space itself. Tracy Lewis operated the weapons systems on Jake's ship. She had been a good gunner before, but now she was something more. When she fired at Zephyrian shields, she could somehow convince the energy barriers to fail. The quantum manipulation abilities let her change how electromagnetic fields behaved. Enemy plasma bolts turned back on themselves. Shield generators overloaded when she focused her thoughts on them. The first space battle above Earth became a massacre, but not the kind anyone expected. Zephyrian crystal armor that had protected their ships for centuries began to crack and crumble. Human fighters that should have been destroyed by the first enemy salvo instead danced between plasma, bolts like they knew where each shot would be. The aliens had never seen anything like it in their long history of conquest. On the surface, Commander Tony Rogers watched the sky battle through the smoke of burning cities. His resistance fighters cheered as enemy ships began falling like broken stars. Amy Foster could hardly believe what she was seeing. The human ships moved like living things instead of machines. They flowed around enemy formations and struck at weak points that should have been impossible to find. The Zephyrian ground forces had been advancing steadily through human defenses for days. Their crystal armor made them nearly invincible, and their plasma weapons cut through human vehicles like paper. Sergeant Pete Williams led his squad in a desperate defense of a civilian shelter. They had been falling back for hours when something changed. The fear and desperation that had been crushing their spirits suddenly became something else. Amy Foster was the first to discover what humans could do when they stopped thinking like normal soldiers. She ran straight at a Zephyrian warrior that was 3 times her size. His plasma rifle fired, but the bolt passed through her like she was made of air. She touched his crystal armor, and it began to fall apart at the molecular level. The alien warrior fell to his knees as his protective shell crumbled to dust. Pete Williams found that he no longer needed explosives to destroy enemy equipment. He could place his hands on Zephyrian vehicles and cause their metal components to become unstable. Engines exploded without any external damage. Weapons melted in the hands of alien soldiers. Danny Clark discovered he could bend light around himself and become invisible to all sensors. The Zephyrians could not fight enemies. They could not see. In his underground laboratory, Dr. Alex Turner monitored the quantum readings from the battle zones. The energy levels were beyond anything his instruments could properly measure. Dr. Maria Santos helped him track individual human fighters as they displayed abilities that rewrote the laws of physics. Each person showed different talents, but they all involved manipulating reality at the most basic level. The quantum fields generated by desperate humans were changing the battlefield in ways that no military doctrine could explain. Lisa Martinez could phase entire ships through solid matter. Ryan Bennett could take control of enemy computer systems just by thinking about them. The more humans worked together, the stronger their abilities became. 2 people could do things that 10 people could not manage separately. War Commander Thexkai received panicked reports from his ground commanders. Human resistance fighters were displaying impossible abilities. Crystal armor was failing for no apparent reason. Plasma weapons were turning against their users. His warriors were retreating in terror from enemies that could walk through walls and appear behind them without warning. Nothing in Zephyrian military history had prepared them for this kind of warfare. The space battle turned completely in humanity's favor when Jake Morrison's squadron learned to coordinate their quantum abilities. Sam Rodriguez could fold space around their target locations. Tracy Lewis could overload multiple enemy shields simultaneously. Other pilots found they could make their ships exist in several places at once or phase through enemy formations to attack from impossible angles. Dr. Turner made the most important discovery when he studied groups of humans working together. Their individual quantum fields combined into something much more powerful. A single person could bend metal, but 10. People working together could reshape entire asteroids. The collective human consciousness could reach out and touch the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Amy Foster's resistance cell became a living weapon that moved through enemy lines like ghosts. They could appear anywhere and disappear before the aliens could react. Pete Williams could cause molecular breakdown in any Zephyrian equipment he touched. Danny Clark could become invisible not just to sight, but to all forms of detection. The aliens had no defense against enemies who ignored every rule of combat. The Zephyrian fleet began to retreat as their losses mounted beyond acceptable levels. Ships that had conquered entire civilizations were falling to human fighters that should not have been able to scratch their hulls. Ground forces that had never known defeat were running from human soldiers who could walk through energy barriers and redirect particle beams with their bare hands. War Commander Thexkai sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. The humans had developed abilities that violated everything the Empire knew about physics and warfare. This was no longer a simple conquest. This was something that threatened the very foundations of galactic civilization. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council took place in the crystal chambers of the Andromedan homeworld. 12 different alien species gathered to discuss the impossible reports coming from human space. Council Speaker Veltar studied the combat recordings with growing alarm. The humans were doing things that should not be possible, according to every law of physics known to galactic science. Science Director Zorthek of the Crystalline Hegemony analyzed the quantum readings from the battle zones. His advanced instruments detected energy signatures that made no sense. Human consciousness was somehow manipulating dark matter at levels that their most powerful technology could not achieve. The primitive species from the edge of the galaxy had developed abilities that surpassed anything in recorded history. War Commander Thexkai stood before the council trying to explain his defeat. His crystal armor was cracked, and his pride was broken. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced enemies who could ignore the basic rules of reality. Human soldiers walked through energy barriers like they were not there. Their weapons turned against Zephyrian forces without any visible cause. Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Turner made discoveries that changed everything humans thought they knew about themselves. Deep in the quantum signature of their home planet, he found traces of ancient energy patterns. The abilities that humans were developing were not new. They were remembering something that had been hidden for millions of years. His assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, helped him piece together the evidence. The quantum fields around Earth contained layers of information that went back to the beginning of human evolution. Alex realized that their ancestors had possessed these powers long ago. Some catastrophic event had forced the abilities into dormancy, but they were still there waiting to be awakened. The war with the Zephyrians had provided the desperate conditions needed to unlock humanity's true potential. Captain Jake Morrison led the first human counterattack against Zephyrian territory. His ship no longer looked like anything built by normal technology. Lisa Martinez had used her quantum abilities to reshape the hull at the molecular level. The vessel could exist partially in normal space and partially in dark matter dimensions. Enemy sensors could not track something that was not entirely there. The crew of Jake's ship had evolved beyond normal human limitations. Lisa could now reshape matter on a massive scale. She turned asteroids into weapons and created breathable atmospheres on barren worlds. Sam Rodriguez no longer traveled through space in the traditional sense. He folded reality around their destinations and made distance meaningless. Tracy Lewis could overload entire enemy fleets by manipulating electromagnetic fields across light years of space. The human fleet that attacked Proxima Colony was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that phased in and out of normal space struck at Zephyrian defenses from impossible angles. Human soldiers appeared inside enemy installations without using transport beams or airlocks. They simply convinced the walls that humans should be able to pass through them. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Carter commanded the ground assault on Proxima. His soldiers had become something between human and force of nature. Sergeant Holly Green could read the thoughts of enemy commanders and predict their strategies before they were even formed. Corporal Joe Miller manipulated gravity fields to create weapons effects that no military manual could explain. The Zephyrian defenders on Proxima had no idea how to fight enemies who ignored every rule of warfare. Human troops walked through plasma barriers and redirected particle beams with their bare hands. They appeared in multiple locations simultaneously and disappeared when attacked. The crystal armor that had protected Zephyrians for centuries crumbled when humans simply convinced its molecular structure to become unstable. The liberation of Proxima Colony revealed something that shocked both humans and aliens. The colonists, who had suffered under Zephyrian occupation for 3 years, began developing quantum abilities as soon as they saw their rescuers. The trauma of captivity combined with the hope of freedom triggered the same awakening that had saved Earth. Every human under sufficient stress could unlock these powers. Dr. Turner studied the newly awakened colonists and confirmed his theories about human evolution. The abilities were not random mutations or gifts from unknown forces. They were the birthright of the human species finally returning after eons of dormancy. The quantum manipulation powers had been part of humanity since the beginning, but they only emerged when survival was at stake. The news of Proxima's liberation spread through human space like wildfire. On every world, families learned that their missing loved ones were not only alive, but free. More importantly, they learned that humans possessed abilities that made them the equals of any alien empire. The species that had been facing extinction was now revealing itself to be something far more powerful than anyone had imagined. The Galactic Council voted to establish a quarantine around human space, but their decision came too late. Human exploration teams were already making contact with dozens of other species. Dr. Helen Brooks led diplomatic missions that offered alien civilizations a choice between alliance and conquest. Most species chose alliance after witnessing what humans could do. Commander Chris Parker discovered that human abilities worked differently with various alien life forms. The methane breathers of Titan VII found that humans could adapt to their toxic atmosphere through quantum manipulation. The silicon-based crystallites learned that humans could communicate with their mineral consciousness directly through dark matter resonance. Each contact revealed new aspects of human potential. On the former Zephyrian capital world, Governor Kate Johnson established the first human colonial administration. Her deputy administrator, Paul Wright, oversaw the integration of alien populations, who were amazed to discover that humans treated former enemies as equals rather than slaves. The empire that had conquered through fear was being replaced by something based on cooperation and mutual respect. Dr. Turner worked with an expanded team including Dr. Ellen Hayes and researcher Tim Anderson to document humanity's rapidly growing abilities. They discovered that humans were developing collective consciousness networks that allowed instant communication across galactic distances. Individual minds could join together to solve problems that no single person could handle alone. The revelation that changed galactic understanding came when exploration teams found ancient ruins on 17 different worlds. Each site contained the same quantum signature as awakened humans. The structures were millions of years old, but they responded to human presence like they had been waiting. Alex realized that humanity was not developing new abilities. They were coming home to powers that had always belonged to them. The galaxy that had dismissed humans as a primitive species was forced to confront a new reality. The descendants of the beings who had built the ancient ruins were returning to reclaim their heritage. The war that had started as an attempt to destroy humanity had instead awakened something that would reshape the entire galactic community. 6 months after the Zephyrian invasion began, humanity controlled half of their former empire. The transformation was so complete that alien historians would struggle to explain how it happened so quickly. Human forces did not just defeat their enemies. They converted them into willing allies who fought alongside their former conquerors with enthusiasm that amazed galactic observers. Admiral Karen Davis commanded the human stellar navy from her flagship above the conquered Zephyrian home world. The vessel had been built using quantum manipulation techniques that made traditional engineering obsolete. Human workers could reshape metal with their thoughts and create energy systems that drew power directly from dark matter. The ship existed partially outside normal space, which made it impossible for enemy forces to target effectively. Captain Scott Taylor had discovered how to create stable wormholes that allowed instant travel between star systems. His exploration. Teams could appear anywhere in the galaxy without using traditional jump drives or hyperspace lanes. The ability to fold space through quantum manipulation meant that human forces could be everywhere at once. Enemy fleets would find themselves surrounded by ships that had not been there moments before. Commander Rachel Stone learned to manipulate time dilation fields around human vessels. Her ships could accelerate to impossible speeds by convincing local space that time moved differently. To outside observers, human fleets seemed to appear and disappear faster than sensors could track. Battles that should have taken hours were decided in minutes as human forces struck from multiple temporal angles. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions to discuss the human expansion, but their debates were interrupted by news of more worlds joining the growing alliance. Representatives from the Arcturus Federation and the Vegan Confederacy voted to quarantine human space, but the decision was meaningless. Humans were already in contact with civilizations across the galaxy, offering partnership instead of conquest. Dr. Helen Brooks led first contact missions that revolutionized galactic diplomacy. Her teams could communicate with any species through quantum resonance that translated thoughts directly between different types of consciousness. Language barriers that had separated civilizations for millennia dissolved when humans facilitated direct mind-to-mind contact. Alien species discovered they had more in common than they had ever realized. The methane breathers of Titan VII had been isolated from galactic society because their toxic atmosphere killed most other life forms. Human explorers solved the problem by adapting their quantum abilities to survive in any environment. Commander Chris Parker breathed methane as easily as oxygen and could shift his biology to match local conditions. The isolated species joined, the human alliance eagerly after centuries of loneliness. The silicon-based crystallites communicated through mineral resonance that other species could not understand. Humans discovered they could interface directly with crystal consciousness through dark matter manipulation. Dr. Helen Brooks spent weeks learning to think like living stone and established the first meaningful dialogue between organic and mineral intelligence. The crystallites shared technological secrets that had been locked away for eons. On Proxima Colony, Governor Kate Johnson oversaw the integration of former Zephyrian territories into the human alliance. Her administration included alien officials who worked alongside human leaders as equals. Administrator Paul Wright coordinated reconstruction efforts that used quantum manipulation to rebuild entire cities in days. The worlds that had been conquered by force were now being healed by cooperation. The former Zephyrian war commander Thexkai requested a meeting with human leaders. He had expected to be executed as a war criminal, but instead found himself offered a position in the Alliance military. Human commanders understood that his knowledge of galactic politics would be valuable for maintaining peace. The warrior who had led the invasion of Earth became one of humanity's most trusted advisors. Dr. Alex Turner worked with an international team of scientists to understand the full scope of human evolution. His research facilities now included alien technology that helped map quantum consciousness across multiple dimensions. Dr. Ellen Hayes discovered that human abilities continued to grow stronger with each generation. Children born after the awakening showed powers that exceeded their parents from birth. Researcher Tim Anderson documented the development of collective human consciousness networks that spanned entire star systems. Individual minds could join together to solve complex problems or coordinate massive construction projects. The network grew stronger as more humans learned to use their abilities. 1 billion minds working together could reshape entire planets or redirect the paths of comets. The technological revolution continued under the leadership of Chief Science Officer Dr. Lisa Martinez. Human colonies no longer needed traditional manufacturing or energy systems. Quantum manipulation allowed them to create anything they needed by rearranging matter at the atomic level. Cities existed partially in normal space and partially in dark matter dimensions where the laws of physics could be adjusted as needed. Commander Amy Foster led the new galactic peacekeeping force that resolved conflicts through quantum negotiation, rather than warfare. Her teams included former enemies who had learned that human methods achieved better results than traditional conquest. Disputes between alien species could be settled by allowing the participants to experience each other's perspectives directly through consciousness sharing. The revelation that shook galactic civilization came when Dr. Turner's team decoded the ancient ruins found on dozens of worlds. The structures contained star maps that showed the original extent of human expansion millions of years ago. Humanity had not been a primitive species that recently developed space travel. They were the descendants of beings who had seeded the galaxy with intelligent life before retreating to Earth during some forgotten catastrophe. The quantum signatures in the ruins matched awakened human consciousness perfectly. The technology responded to human presence because it had been built by their ancestors. Every major civilization in the galaxy showed traces of ancient human influence in their genetic codes or cultural development. The species that other races had dismissed as newcomers were actually the original gardeners of galactic society. Intelligence reports revealed that other galaxies were taking notice of the changes in human space. Energy signatures detected by deep space sensors suggested that ancient human colonies in distant star clusters were beginning to awaken. The transformation that had started on Earth was spreading across the universe as dormant human settlements remembered their heritage. The Galactic Assembly was reformed with human representatives taking leadership roles in most major committees. President Elena Rodriguez became the first human to address the combined civilizations of the galaxy. She spoke of cooperation instead of conquest and offered to share human abilities with any species willing to work toward galactic peace. The empire that had once threatened to destroy humanity was now part of an alliance that spanned thousands of worlds. The Zephyrians who had started the war found themselves protected by the very people they had tried to exterminate. Former enemies became the strongest supporters of human leadership as they experienced the benefits of cooperation over competition. 2 years after the Zephyrian War began, humanity had become the guiding force of galactic civilization. The transformation was so complete that most species could barely remember what life had been like under the old system of competing empires and constant warfare. The human galactic protectorate was not built through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that cooperation produced better results than conflict. President Elena Rodriguez stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly, addressing representatives from 3,000 worlds. The chamber itself had been redesigned using human quantum abilities to allow beings of vastly different biologies to exist comfortably in the same space. Methane breathers shared air with oxygen users, while silicon-based life forms communicated directly with organic consciousnesses through human-facilitated quantum links. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison commanded forces that included not just human Dark Walkers, but integrated crews from dozens of species. His flagship existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously allowing it to coordinate activities across the entire galaxy instantly. The bridge crew included his old friends Lisa Martinez and Ryan Bennett, working alongside alien officers who had learned to interface with human quantum fields. War Commander Thexkai served as Morrison's deputy, having discovered that Zephyrian honor culture aligned perfectly with human military values. The warrior who had once led the invasion of Earth now defended human colonies with the same dedication he had once shown to his empire. His crystal armor had been modified using human technology to amplify rather than block quantum abilities. The technological revolution had eliminated scarcity throughout human space and beyond. Chief Science Officer Dr. Lisa Martinez oversaw colonies that could terraform barren worlds through collective will alone. Humans working together could create breathable atmospheres in hours and establish thriving ecosystems in days. Traditional technology became obsolete when conscious beings could manipulate matter and energy directly. Dr. Alex Turner had become Director of Evolutionary Studies, coordinating research into the expanding scope of human abilities. His teams now included alien scientists who helped map consciousness across multiple dimensional layers. The discoveries revealed that quantum manipulation was not unique to humans, but required a specific type of neural architecture that their species had developed over millions of years. The ancient ruins found throughout the galaxy told the complete story of humanity's forgotten past. Dr. Turner's final breakthrough came when he decoded the central archive on the Zephyrian home world. The structure had been built by human ancestors who called themselves the Gardeners. They had seeded thousands of worlds with intelligent life before retreating to Earth when a cosmic catastrophe threatened to destroy the galaxy. The catastrophe had been a war between realities themselves as competing dimensions attempted to merge into normal space. The Gardeners had used their quantum abilities to stabilize local space-time, but the effort had forced them into evolutionary dormancy. Their consciousness had retreated deep into human genetics, waiting for the conditions that would allow their return. Commander Amy Foster led the Galactic Peacekeeping Force that had eliminated warfare throughout most of the known galaxy. Her teams could resolve conflicts by allowing all participants to experience the situation from multiple perspectives simultaneously. When beings could literally feel each other's emotions and understand each other's motivations, violence became unnecessary and counterproductive. The integration process had worked so well that former enemies now served together with genuine friendship. Sergeant Pete Williams worked alongside Zephyrian soldiers who had once tried to kill him. They shared battle stories and trained together in techniques that combined human quantum abilities with alien tactical knowledge. The bonds formed through shared danger and mutual respect proved stronger than old hatreds. Governor Kate Johnson administered former Zephyrian worlds where human and alien populations lived together as equals. Her deputy administrator, Paul Wright, coordinated economic systems that no longer required money or traditional trade. When humans could create anything needed through quantum manipulation, the old concepts of wealth and poverty lost all meaning. The exploration teams led by Dr. Helen Brooks and Commander Chris Parker made contact with civilizations that had been isolated for millennia. Each species brought unique perspectives and abilities that enriched the growing galactic community. The quantum singers of the Magellanic Clouds could manipulate space-time through harmonic resonance. The energy beings of the void between galaxies offered insights into consciousness that existed without physical form. President Rodriguez worked with the reformed Galactic Assembly to establish principles that would guide interstellar society for generations to come. The new constitution emphasized cooperation over competition and recognized the rights of all conscious beings, regardless of their physical form or dimensional origin. The document was written in quantum language that could be understood by any species with sufficient neural complexity. The collective human consciousness network had grown to include willing participants from hundreds of alien species. The shared mental space allowed instant communication and coordination across galactic distances. Complex problems that would have taken individual civilizations centuries to solve were resolved in hours by minds working together toward common goals. Fleet Admiral Morrison reflected on humanity's journey from near extinction to galactic leadership while standing on the bridge of his dimensional ship. The species that had been facing total destruction had instead discovered that their greatest strength was not their reality-altering abilities, but their capacity for empathy and cooperation. The power to manipulate quantum fields was impressive, but the wisdom to use that power for the benefit of all conscious life was what made humans natural leaders. The news that excited galactic civilization most was the detection of signals from other galaxies where human settlements were beginning to awaken. The transformation that had started on Earth was spreading across the universe as dormant colonies remembered their heritage. Soon, the network of consciousness would span multiple galaxies, creating a community of minds that could solve any challenge. Children, born in the new galactic society, grew up learning to use abilities that their grandparents could never have imagined. They could communicate telepathically with beings of any species and manipulate matter at the quantum level from birth. More importantly, they were raised to see all conscious life as part of an extended family that deserved protection and respect. The Zephyrian Empire that had started the war by trying to conquer Earth was now one of humanity's strongest allies. Their military traditions combined with human quantum abilities created peacekeeping forces that could respond to any threat instantly. Former enemies worked together with such effectiveness that observers often forgot they had once been at war. Galaxy that had once been divided by competition and conflict was now united by shared purpose and mutual understanding. The human galactic protectorate was not an empire in the traditional sense, but a community of equals working together toward goals that benefited everyone. The transformation from despair to domination had become something greater than anyone could have predicted. As Captain Morrison watched the stars through his ship's quantum-enhanced viewports, he knew that humanity's greatest achievement was not conquering their enemies, but converting them into friends. The species that had refused to surrender to despair had instead transformed despair itself into hope for the entire galaxy.